In this video presentation, I am going to explain to you a poem. The name of the poem is On the Grasshopper and Cricket. Some people also call the poem as the poetry of earth. Actually, this phrase, the poetry of earth, has been taken from the opening line of the poem. The name of the poet is John Keats. Now, my dear students, I welcome you all to my educational channel. The name of my educational channel is Priyankar Dotto. Here you will find video presentations on English language and literature of school level, college level, as well as of competitive examinations. Now, without wasting a moment, let us move to the most important aspect of this video presentation, that is, we shall move to the text of the poem entitled On the Grasshopper and Cricket, or some people also call it the poetry of earth. Now, if you casually look at the poem, you will find that the poem is divided into two stanzas. The first stanza has 4 lines and the second stanza, or rather the last stanza, has 6 lines. So it is evident that it's a sonnet, and this sonnet belongs to the Petrarchan category, where the sonnet becomes divided into 2 stanzas. The first 8 lines constitute a stanza and it is called an octave, and the last 6 lines constitute the second stanza, or rather the final stanza of the poem, and it is called sestet. Now, first of all, we shall look minutely at the title of the poem. The title of the poem begins with a preposition, and the preposition is on. Now, you must keep in mind that here the preposition on means about, that is, the rest of the title will tell what the poem is about. So, the poem is about the grasshopper and cricket. We all know that grasshopper and cricket are two small insects, and from your previous knowledge, you must have got the impression that John Keats is a romantic poet. Now, you are sure to think that what the poet has to say about these apparently insignificant insects. So, this is a kind of curiosity which has cropped up in your mind, and in order to abate or satiate this curiosity, you must go through the poem. Now, we shall look at the second title of the poem. The second title is The Poetry of Earth. Now, we all know what the earth is. So, it surprises us to think as to what does the word poetry here mean, because by the word earth we understand basically some inanimate things, and so far as animate things are concerned, we keep into consideration trees, plants, as well as animals and birds. So, by the word earth, we do not at all think of human beings. So, what does the poet say, or what has the poet to say about the poetry of earth, and what the word poetry here means, are the two things which makes one curious to go through the poem. So, we shall explain these things after we have completed the total discussion of the poem. So, without wasting a moment, let us look at the first stanza, that is the octave of the poem. The poem begins in this manner: the poetry of earth is never dead. So, a sense of eternity, A sense of continuity is suggested in the very opening line of the poem. Here the poet tells that the poetry of earth goes on and on. It is an endless process. So we are once again confused as to what does the word poetry here mean. So I have to tell you at this point that the word poetry means music. So the poet wants to mean that the poetry of earth, or rather the music of earth, is continuous. It does not end at any point of time. So the poet wants to imply that those creatures, those living beings which produce this music keep on producing it at an eternal basis. Then in the second line, the poet says, when all the birds are faint with the hot sun. The phrase hot sun creates an impression of summer, the season of summer, when the sun is supposed to give scorching heat and light. So all the birds are faint. So the birds have moved about here and there. It is summer. So it is expected that the birds will become exhausted, they will become tired and hide in cooling trees, and those birds take shelter in those trees which have more branches and leaves, because those trees are expected to give the birds a cooling sensation. So the poet tells that in the season of summer, birds are not expected to sing. So we become curious to know as to which creature or which creatures constitute the music of earth in summer. So in the second part of the third line, the poet informs us that despite the reluctance of the birds in singing, the music of earth in summer persists. Now the question is, how does this music persist? So the poet tells, a voice will run, someone's voice will be heard from hedge to hedge. Hedge means bush. So that creature is moving from a bush to another bush. That's why the listeners feel that the voice is moving from one hedge to another hedge about a new mown mead. So the hedges are located on a mead or meadow or grassland, and that meadow has become newly mown. So the grassy things, grassy substances or small plants which had grown on that meadow have been cut off. So our question is not with the meadow nor with the hedge, but with the creature which is producing that music. So the poet says that is the grasshoppers. So the voice which is heard in summer from hedge to hedge about the new mown mead belongs to the grasshopper. That voice is of the grasshopper. That music of earth in summer is produced by the grasshopper. The poet clarifies as to why does the grasshopper sings in summer, which is apparently a season when creatures are supposed to be exhausted and are expected not to sing out of exhaustion. The poet tells he takes the lead in summer luxury. So summer is not a season of torture to the grasshopper. It is a season of luxury. It's a season of enjoyment to the grasshopper and of those creatures that enjoy summer. The grasshopper takes the first position. That's why the poet says he takes the lead. That is, the grasshopper belongs to the leading position so far as the enjoyment of summer is concerned. That the grasshopper enjoys the summer more than any other creature is not sufficient. There is another important aspect. So the poet says he has never done with his delights. So the enjoyment which the grasshopper has in summer seems to be endless. That is, at no point the grasshopper thinks that it has nothing more to enjoy in summer. So since the enjoyment of the grasshopper is endless, the expression which this enjoyment finds in the voice of the grasshopper is endless. And most importantly, the music of earth in summer is an expression of enjoyment or happiness or joy, whatever you may call it. Most importantly, for when tired out with fun, he rests at ease beneath some pleasant weed. So the other creatures become tired out, becomes jaded, becomes exhausted with the hot sun, in the scorching heat of the sun. But the grasshopper becomes exhausted with what? With too much enjoyment, with the exhaustion which the enjoyment of summer produces in it. Only then it rests at ease beneath some pleasant weed. Then the grasshopper takes rest, takes repose under some weed which is comfortable. Weed is actually that plant which we do not put in the soil but which crops up naturally, and despite our negligence in its upbringing, it stands up erect. So the grasshopper enjoys summer, and this enjoyment is reflected in its voice, and so its voice constitutes the music of earth in summer. And one point to note from this stanza is that while referring to an insect, the grammatical rule is to use it as the pronoun, but here the poet has used he because he has personified the grasshopper. Now, one thing has to be explained at this point of time, and the point is that the symbolic use of poetry. So now we have come to a point when we can easily say that the word poetry here acts as a symbol and symbol of music. Now we have to think that there must be some association between poetry and music. If we think deeply, we shall easily understand that there are 2 points in which poetry and music merge. The first one is spontaneity, and the second aspect is the expression of feelings. Whether it be poetry or it be music, both express heartfelt feelings. So the grasshopper expresses through its voice what it actually feels, and since its feeling is one of happiness, one of joy, the music of earth is one of joy also. Now let us move to the sestet of this poem. Here the poet says, the poetry of earth is ceasing never. So the poetry of earth never ceases, it never stops. The word cease means stop. So if we look at the first line of the poem, here the poet says the poetry of earth is never dead. It is somewhat prosaic in comparison to the first line of the sestet, which is poetic because of the use of the word cease. So you must have heard the name of Wordsworth. In one of his Lucy poems entitled A Slumber Did My Spirit Seal, the poet used the word ceased, C-E-A-S-E-D. So by associating this poem with that poem of Wordsworth, I want to establish the point that the word cease has some poetic association. Okay, so the octave begins with an idea and the opening line of the sestet repeats it, but in a poetic language. Not simply poetic, in a more poetic language. Now, in the second line of the sestet, the poet tells, on a lone winter evening, the season changes. In the octave, it was summer. In the sestet, it is winter. And in winter, people are supposed to stay indoors rather than going out and meeting their friends and relatives after their work is over, that is in the evening. So people are confined within the house, so they must be feeling lonely. They cannot meet with their friends. There must be some sense of loneliness in it. So when the frost hath wrought a silence, so there is frost outside and it is impossible to go out, and there is silence everywhere because nobody is outside their house. So far as the natural objects are concerned, natural creatures are concerned, they are also in their respective shelters. Then what happens? From the stove there shrills the cricket song. So the atmosphere is hostile for the production of music, but the music of nature in winter persists. How? From the stove there shrills. Now there is a music and it comes from the stove. You must keep in mind that here the word stove means the hotmost part of the tree. What happens from the stove? There shrills. Shrills means a high pitched sound is heard. And the question is, which creature produces this shrilling sound? The answer is the cricket. The cricket produces this shrilling sound. The poet clearly calls it a song because this sound is both spontaneous and an expression of heartfelt feelings. As it is winter, there is frost outside. It may be that the cricket is not enjoying it, but no, that is not the case. In warmth increasing ever, so the intensity of the voice of the cricket is increasing, it is growing up at a rapid rate, at a steady rate, if not at a rapid rate. It is on the increasing trend. So the more the cricket is enjoying winter, the more intensity is there in its song. And in the last two lines, there is a dramatic twist. What is the twist? And seems to one in drowsiness half lost. A person is feeling drowsy. We all know that in winter evenings it is expected for any person to feel drowsy, and that person is half lost in drowsiness. That is, he has partially lost his consciousness of reality, the time frame, the place where he is. And that person also listens to the song of the cricket. Now, what happens to him when he listens to the song of the cricket? He feels that it is the grasshoppers among some grassy hills. That person completely forgets, or that person cannot differentiate between the song of the cricket and the song of the grasshopper. He also forgets that it is winter, and so the grasshopper is not expected to sing at this point of time. No, that person thinks that it is the grasshopper. So that person must have felt that the voice of the grasshopper and the voice of the cricket, or rather the song of the grasshopper and the song of the cricket, are alike at some points. I have already mentioned to you that those voices are alike at 2 points. The first point is spontaneity, and the second point is expression of heartfelt happiness or joy. Since this person fails to differentiate between the two songs, between the two voices, whatever you may call, the sense of continuity in the music of the earth is established so far as the nature of the songs are concerned. Now, there is another thing. How is continuity established throughout the year? For understanding this point, we have to keep in mind that, broadly speaking, in a cold country such as England is, that is, the place England is the birthplace of John Keats. So there are two main seasons in England. One is summer, which exists for a very small time. Of course, it's a very enjoyable time in winter. Sorry, it's a very enjoyable time in England, summer. And the other season is winter. So the grasshopper sings in summer, the cricket sings in winter. Since these two seasons together constitute a year, the sense of continuity of the music of the earth is established. We have got two creatures whose songs constitute the music of the earth. Thus, we can easily say that the poetry of the earth is a thing which has a sense of eternity, which has a sense of continuity. So, we have come to a point where we can easily understand the significance of the title on the grasshopper and the cricket. The poet has invested some simple ideas and has modified them by virtue of his imagination, and those ideas are associated with the voice of the grasshopper and the voice of the cricket. And it is this special quality of imagination which makes this poem a romantic poem, and it is this power of imagination which makes John Keats a romantic poet. So, before concluding this discussion, I shall sum up the poem in a few words. According to John Keats, The grasshopper and the cricket have special roles to play. They constitute the music of the earth. Since the year is formed of two main seasons, summer and winter, the existence of the music of earth in summer and winter are sure to establish the eternity of the music of earth. So far as the music of earth in summer is concerned, it is formed by the voice of the grasshopper, or rather the song of the grasshopper. And in winter, the music of earth is formed by the voice, or rather the song of the cricket. Both the voices or songs, whatever we may call it, are alike in being spontaneous and in expressing heartfelt happiness or joy. Now, we have come to the last section of this video presentation. Before moving to this valedictory part, I want to make a declaration. The declaration is that you will very soon find two important posts on this poem in my blog. My blog is priyankadatto.com, and the two posts will cover the entire poem, the word notes, the paraphrase, as well as the all probable types of questions and their answers so far as this poem is concerned. Now, before concluding this video presentation, I request you to subscribe my channel, to share my video presentations to your friends, to put forward your opinion as well as your queries in the comment section of this video presentation. I thank you all. See you again in my next video presentation. Thank you once again.